I am so glad that you're all here today. We are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is transformation through solo travel. So, when I talk about transformation, I mean all kinds of, it could be anything, whether you are in the midst of a divorce and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with that next leg of your life. You might be an empty nester and you're figuring out that as well. What does life look like now that your kids are out of the house? Or you might just generally feel stuck in whatever, uh, wherever you are in your life and feel like, um, I don't know what's next. I am just wondering what I want to do for this next phase of my journey. And so I am so happy to talk with Jacque because she has just returned from Crete and she's such a great example of transformation through solo travel. And I'm going to let her tell you her story. I don't want to put words in her mouth, so I will let Jacque take it away.
Woo! Thanks, Don. I'm telling you, your program, The Brave Journey, has transformed my life in many ways. You know, when we first began this journey, I was stuck. I had was just in a place where I just didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, I had a big move. Anyway, I came to the conclusion that I just need something to shake something loose. And coming across your program, it was like, you know what? I was guided to it. So if I'm guided to it, then there must be something to it, right? So I did. So signed on. And it has been so much more than just about solo travel. I mean, I learned about what feelings I want to feel when I travel, what my strengths are, and I was able to apply all of this into my brave journey. What was interesting is I get on this program and other women have already selected places that they wanted to go, and they were going to be going within 6-8 months. And I really didn't have a destination in mind, so I just threw out Greece. Where would you like to go? Okay, Greece. It's been on my heart for 25 years, so just put that out there. Now, I always thought I was going to go to Greece to get married. Now, that's not to say that that's not going to happen, but yeah, not this time. I know. So I just decided, and I put it out there to the universe. I said, I'm going to Greece. Now, I didn't know where, and of course, we've all been inundated with photos of all the touristy places in Santorini and Mykonos and all these different islands. So I didn't know where. I'm going to go, and it was a few days later that I saw a post from my niece that says, oh, look at this great bracelet that I made for my best friend. She's here visiting from Greece. And I'm like, what? So I reached out to her, and it was just like ding, 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 ding. Things started rolling. Like she said, oh, I've got to connect you with, my best friend and her husband. They've moved over there now, and they love it. And I'm sure they would love to have you too. So we all connected, and they're like, yes, come, it'll be great. And so I'm like, okay. So all these things started falling into place. And in the meantime, I had to have major dental surgery. That's a whole nother thing. But it enabled me to have enough miles to go. So now I have a place to stay. And now I have my ticket to be paid for through these miles. And I'm like, well, there's no way that I'm not going, because those are the two major factors.
Which I love that you're saying this, because I think that as a hurdle to get over often when I hear a lot like, oh, I'd love to travel. I wish I could do that. And sometimes that hurdle is money, is the means, is the money, the money or the time. Those are often the two things. And what I love about your story is it's not like you were rolling in money and had extra to spend. You had to actually figure out, how am I going to afford this trip? That was a big deal. And just watching over time these things unfold, where all of a sudden there's your niece has a best friend that is offering to let you come stay, and then you know, and not that you love the idea that you had to have dental work, but sometimes you make lemonade out of lemons, right?
Right. And it was just one of these things I just felt really believing in, that if I let go, the more I let go, the more there's flow. And I kind of come up with this word called flow word. And that's about forward motion, moving, you know, in the flow. And so I thought, I'm just going to keep putting it out there. And then it was getting closer and closer to my trip. And then I'm like, okay, well, I still need, you know, funds or whatever. And then, okay, so then all of a sudden I get a notice that, you know, I got this large amount of available credit on a credit card. And I'm thinking, well, if it comes to that, at least I have a net, you know, and I can pay that off somehow when I get back. But the two major things were already taken care of. And I'm like, okay, I've got to keep going with the flow here. So I did. And then all of a sudden, you know, I have friends that we're in a group together that's really tight. And they suggested, you know, why don't you're an artist, so why don't you create some art jewelry or whatever to take with you? And I'm like, oh yeah, because I remember I was on a trip one time to Florida, and I had all these bracelets that I made, and I made hundreds of dollars on the plane and paid for my whole trip before I landed. So it's like, okay, let's do that. So I went back to that idea, and I did. I ended up taking a small carry-on bag with all my jewelry in it and different things. And then I also made art prints. I have large pieces of art that I just started, and that was a part of Brave Journey. That was a big thing for me because I was stuck not knowing what to create, and it kept telling me to go bolder, bigger, bigger, bolder, bolder, bigger. And so now the paintings are 5 foot by 4 foot, and I don't want to really do anything smaller, and it just keeps coming. So I took photographs of different areas of my artwork, and I made them into 4 by 6 prints, and then put them on a 5 by 7 card, white card. And then I finger painted over the print and hand embellished them, made a certificate of authenticity to put on the back, you know, to bring up that perceived value, packaged them all, and, you know, had my little information on there or whatever. And so then all of a sudden, people here started buying my prints. They started buying my jewelry. So now I'm accumulating, you know, some funds. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we have some fun pictures of people that you met in Crete that purchased either some of your jewelry or your prints. And so I will also share them. I'm going to share them on social media and via my email list. So if you're not on my email list, get on my email list, because we're going to be telling Jackie's story along the way. Not only like today we're talking about leading up to her trip, but then we're eventually going to get to what actually happened when she got to Greece. And you guys, you're not.
It's just feel like, you know, even though I've returned, I feel like I was in a book or a movie or something, because it was not what I expected. Like, I left here at the airport and I said, I am open, totally open. My heart, my soul, every being, everything of me. I'm open to the unknown. I'm just going to embrace it. And the couple that I was going to stay with lives in Crete. And so now I had a place that I knew I was staying. It wasn't going to be the great island of Santorini or these other islands with, you know, elaborate tour stuff or whatever. And I decided I did not want to research Crete. I really didn't want to know anything about it, because the people I'm staying with, I knew I would be safe, right? So I'm just going to jump into the unknown and embrace it and see what happens.
Woohoo. I love it. I
Oh, it
love
was a woohoo, all right.
it. Um, what I think is interesting too, or that I want to make sure we talk about, because in the you're part of my Brave Journey program, which is a group program for women who are interested in doing solo travel, but either aren't sure where they want to go, or a little bit scared and would love to just have the support of a community. So it's actually a group program where everyone's planning their own trip, but we're kind of cheerleaders for each other. So you are part of this program and you're still part of it. We have an alumni group. And so as you were planning, what I also want to give you a chance to talk about a little bit is that you weren't sure exactly where you were going to go and when you were going. It wasn't, there were some women in the group who knew exactly where they were going and they planned it right away. And I know that a lot of people may hesitate to be part of a group because you think, I don't know if I can do that in a short amount of time or whatever. But you actually took a little bit longer to figure out where you were going, had to get the funds together and stuff like that. And I think I'm going to let you tell the story of that. But I think it's, really interesting and might be inspiring for people to hear as well, that you don't have to have it all figured out immediately. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And now, and you're off to the races, because the program really does help you kind of cultivate and learn a lot about yourself, so that you then are planning and taking the kind of trip that your soul really needs and wants.
Absolutely. When I started this, I just put a date out there that came to me was September of 23, and that would be 18 months out. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's a year and a half. I can probably definitely generate something,
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that 18 months I think that was the secret sauce, because it gave me time to even embrace more of my confidence and my strengths and abilities that I learned, through this group, pulling out my strengths, that I was able to start using those before I went on the trip, which to me, that was, what do you want to feel on the trip? Well, I wanted to feel vibrant and, I wanted to be out of my unstuck. And so I started living those before I left on the trip. And I think for me, that was very valuable, because I was able to build that up, because I was in a really low place, a really stuck low place. So that kind of enabled me to kind of climb up and experience the unknown. And I did that. Like, I would go somewhere here in my area and just be open to the unknown, not plan anything, just show up somewhere. Something looks good. I think I'll go over there. I think I'll drive this route instead. Kind of practicing, And then when I did that, when I was going to book the trip, I was booking a round trip ticket to Crete. And again, I get the message, this is not the right day. Don't do it. This is not the right day. And I went several times trying to book this round trip ticket. And I listened to my gut, my intuition, my guidance, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, that, I listened to it. I'm not, seriously, we're getting close to where I need to leave. I need to get a ticket. And then I get the message, one way. And I'm like, well, obviously I'm not going one way. I am coming back. And it's like, no, book a ticket one way, because you don't know where you're coming home from. And I'm like, oh, that's right. Because Dawn was going to be close to me in Portugal. I could go there. I had another invitation to go to Cyprus, Greece. And perhaps Dawn and I was going to go over to Turkey. It was just one of these things that there were so many options on the end, and it made sense. And I'm like, okay, well, now that makes sense. Like, I had to have it justified. So booked the one way and went over, and I was totally content there, stayed there a month, and didn't even have the desire to, sorry, Dawn, to meet up with you or or travel anywhere else. It was just, that was where I was supposed to be.
That's really cool. Tell me, I'm curious about the stuckness. I want to I want to talk about that for a minute because I think that that's um, often the point at which when we're feeling stuck in our life. I know it's part of my own story. I was married and had a career that I started to just kind of ask, is this actually what I want? Is this really all that there is to my life? Is this really what I want? You know, I was in my 40s. Um, and I felt stuck. And it sort of probably the inspiration of Brave Journey going all the way back to that time of me feeling like I don't know what to do next. And I think maybe I need to get away from my everyday life and all the voices that are telling me what to do and friends, family, whatever, culture. And I knew that I needed to relocate myself and to just for that in order for me to get space to figure out like to get clarity. And so for me, my story is I definitely felt stuck, you know, in those situations. Yours is a little bit different. And I'd love for you to talk about that because I talk to a lot of women and, you know, I was talking to a woman a couple of weeks ago whose children just, you know, her last son just graduated from high school and now she's on her own. And is, you know, just kind of figuring out like, what did I used to do before I had kids at home? Um, and feeling a little bit stuck there. So I think we all have these different pockets in our life where we feel a little bit stuck and you know, taking ourselves out of our everyday life and doing something new at that time. So um, I'd love your thoughts on that and maybe talk a little bit about how you were stuck.
Oh boy. Okay. So you know what quicksand is? Yeah. Okay. That's kind of how I felt. Like I was trying to get myself up and out of it, but I just the more I tried, it's like I kept just sinking back down in and I couldn't get a handle on it. I couldn't get something to grasp onto. A little backstory. I had moved to Michigan and I'd been up there 7 years and my daughter still lives in our state that we're from. And she had a baby. And so I was really trying to figure out how to get back here. And again, listen to the guidance and everything. And I was able to get back to her. And we're in the same small town. But I felt like all the things that I'd been through in the last 7 years, I'd had 2 knees replaced. I had deep depression. I was taking care of my mom that was for 30 years, and I had to leave because of a health issue here. I had to leave and go to Michigan and kind of regroup and that. So, and then her passing, it was just so much altogether, like major traumatic things, one on top of the other. And I get back here and I'm like, okay, I've manifested this perfect duplex that I live in with bonuses that I didn't even know that I was going to get. And I should be elated. I should be so happy. And I was, but I just didn't know what's next. And I knew I wanted to create. I love being creative and you know, and getting more into my art because that's where I can really feel like I can just let go. So it was just really challenging for me because I was in a new place, in a new home, coming off all these things. And COVID, I know, has been a reason for people that have really set back or whatever, or caused a lot of different things. But for me, COVID was very valuable in getting me back here because I was able to leave the job I was at and another in Michigan, and I had unemployment. And so that's what helped me get back here. So you can kind of see there's a pattern with my life about, you know, following the dots, listening to the intuition, and putting out there what I really wanted to. That's Okay, if you hear that, that's the farmer's alarm saying it's 12 o'clock and it's time for lunch. Yes, that's the funness of, living in a small town community, a farming community. And if we stick around, you'll hear it again at 5 o'clock to let them know it's time to wrap it up. So anyway, so that's kind of where I was stuck. And coming in on this program, perfect timing, listen to the guidance for that. And as soon as I came on board, I immediately started feeling small shifts, because you made us take these personality tests and stuff that I wasn't really so much happy about. But you know what? I did it, and that was one of the key factors in me moving forward, because it enlightened me. It showed me what my strengths and weaknesses were, and what I can use to the best of my ability to go forward. So, yeah. And this is only the beginning.
So I can't wait. Like, we're going to talk more about your trip, what happened. You guys are gonna love it. I mean, there's kayaking in the sea involved. There's driving a stick shift around bends. I can't, like, I think I've lost count of all the things. You sent me a lot of videos, but I can't wait to talk about your experience, and then also talk about what it's like coming back and integrating. It also can often be a difficult time, but it also can be a really energizing time of integrating what happens. So so stay tuned for all of those different, for us to talk more about your trip, and then coming back as well.
Yeah, it's gonna there's so many waves of up and down, and challenges and different things, but it's been a trip and a half. So yeah, stay tuned. There's great stuff coming.
Right. Can't wait to chat more. All right. Thanks, everyone. Stay tuned for more of the story.